Take a continuous function, differentiate it to find the rate of change, then differentiate that result. What happens when you repeat this again and again? Early calculus gives us a physical intuition for this. If your starting function describes a vehicle's position, the first derivative isolates its velocity. The second derivative strips away velocity to give you pure acceleration. But as we push past the second or third derivative, the physical metaphor starts to break down. We have to ask what physical and geometric truth the nth derivative is actually extracting from a curve. To answer that, we are turning to Walter Rudin's Principles of Mathematical Analysis. Specifically, we are looking at the latter half of Chapter 5. We will rigorously define successive differentiation and trace how this exact definition constructs one of the most powerful tools in mathematics, Taylor's theorem. Taylor's theorem acts as the bridge connecting the pristine abstraction of differential calculus to the messy reality of applied numerical approximation. Mastering this logical progression from a strict topological definition to a definitive theorem is a requirement for anyone tackling higher-level mathematics or preparing for competitive exams. Looking directly at the text, we find definition 5.14. This is where Rudin formally establishes the rules for higher-order derivatives. He outlines a sequential notation. We start with the base function f, move to the first derivative f prime, the second derivative f double prime, and so on, escalating up to the nth derivative, written as f to the n. The core mathematical requirement is purely recursive. The nth derivative is strictly constructed by taking the first derivative of the preceding n-1 function. But Rudin introduces a crucial topological constraint here. For f derivative to exist at a specific point x, the preceding function f to the n-1 must exist not just at x, but in an open neighborhood around x. Pointwise existence is insufficient. Taking the limit of a difference quotient requires approaching the point from adjacent, mathematically defined values. If the previous derivative only exists at one isolated point, you cannot approach it, and the next derivative is undefined. This is a common trap for exam candidates. You might be able to algebraically derive a function twice, but that does not guarantee the second derivative actually exists everywhere. The neighborhood rule must hold. When this nested neighborhood requirement holds true for all positive integers n, continuing infinitely without breaking down, we call that function smooth. True higher-order differentiability is a strict structural property of an interval. It is an unbroken chain of local existence, not a localized algebraic coincidence. Let's step away from the abstract constraints and look at the geometric intuition of how these nested derivatives relate to one another on a graph. Consider a generic oscillating wave-like function on a coordinate plane. This is our baseline, f of x. When we overlay the first derivative, f prime of x, its x-intercepts perfectly align with the local maxima and minima of the original wave. It zeroes out exactly where the baseline curve goes flat. Overlay the second derivative, f double prime of x, and its roots map to the inflection points of the original curve, the exact moments where f of x switches its concavity from up to down. Each successive derivative acts as a mathematical filter. It strips away the dominant shape to isolate increasingly subtle geometric data about the curve's behavior. If you possess the exact value of all these derivatives at a single point, you theoretically possess the complete geometric DNA of the entire function extending outward from that point. Theorem 5.15 is the precise mechanism that converts this geometric DNA into a manageable polynomial. Rudin sets strict prerequisites here. The function f must be real, n must be a positive integer, the n-1 derivative must be continuous, and the nth derivative must exist. With those conditions met, equation 23 defines the Taylor polynomial, p of t. This summation builds a shape piece by piece. The zeroth term pins the polynomial to the correct starting point. The first derivative term matches the slope. The second derivative term locks in the concavity. Moving to the top of the next page, equation 24 defines exactly how well this polynomial approximates the true function. The true value f of beta equals the polynomial p of beta plus a specific remainder term. Notice that this remainder, the error term, relies entirely on the nth derivative evaluated at some unknown point x, which lies somewhere between our starting point alpha and our target beta. Because this error is bound by a derivative at an intermediate point, Taylor's theorem is a high-order generalization of the basic mean value theorem. This allows us to wrap a complex curve in increasingly tight polynomial shapes, getting closer and closer to the value with each added term. Taylor's theorem proves that we can deconstruct infinitely complex transcendental curves into simple, finite polynomials, and we can calculate exactly how large the margin of error will be. In Rudin's proof for Theorem 5.15, the goal is to mathematically isolate that exact error term. In equations 25 and 26, the strategy defines a constant m and constructs an auxiliary function g of t, cleverly designed to evaluate to 0 at boundaries alpha and beta. Equations 27 and 28 show the consequence of this setup. Differentiating g of t exactly n times systematically collapses all lower-order polynomial components. Because g of t is 0 at the boundaries, applying the mean value theorem repeatedly forces the nth derivative to equal 0. This cascading chain of differentiation clears out the polynomial noise, leaving only the exact error bound standing alone in the equation. The proof relies on its economy, iteratively using the simplest tool in the calculus box, the mean value theorem, to solve an infinitely complex approximation problem. These tools govern applied mechanics and computation, moving the math from the page into physical models. In physics, extracting higher derivatives defines velocity, acceleration, and jerk, allowing us to accurately model orbital mechanics and fluid dynamics. In computer science, machines don't natively understand transcendental functions. Numerical algorithms use Taylor series to calculate values for sine or e to the x using basic arithmetic. And as you move further into mathematical analysis, these one-dimensional principles map directly to multivariable optimization, eventually structuring the Hessian matrix in Chapter 9. We have seen that higher-order derivatives demand the strict existence of a topological neighborhood. They unpack deep geometric data, and through Taylor's theorem, they build perfect polynomial approximations with bound error. If this breakdown clarified Chapter 5 for you, please like the video and subscribe. Enable notifications so you don't miss our upcoming deep dives into the rest of the text. Mastering the rigorous definitions laid out by Rudin provides the structural foundation for advanced mathematical analysis.